first oil change and to adjust the valves. In order to adjust the valves, we have to take off the seat, we have to take off the gas tank, get them out of the way, we can get the cover off, valve cover off of the bike, and get to the valves and check and adjust them. So the first thing I'm going to do is take off the seat and tank, which requires a key. Side cover, top your seat loose, two 10mm bolts, take those out. Side. And make sure, go ahead and set up a towel or something like that so you have someplace to put the tank soft so you don't scratch up the bottom of the tank. I have seen online a couple of people claim that they have pulled this the valve cover off without taking the tank off. I would go ahead and take the tank off. It's way easier. You got way more access to get in there and get the bolts out. You're a lot less likely to damage the tank. So the tank will lift up at this point, and now we're going to try and get in there so you can see what I'm doing to pull all the electrical cables and the vacuum line and the fuel line loose when you take the tank off. Okay, I've just lifted the tank up. I put a block of wood underneath it to hold up so I can get both hands in there. It makes it a little easier to get these fittings loose. You want to be careful with these, particularly the fuel line. You've got two vacuum lines, one which you probably can't see on camera too good, that's on the right hand side of the bike. You've got a vacuum line on the left hand side of the bike. You have this electrical connection for your fuel pump, which is right here. It has a little piece you need to pop out and it will pop right off. You have your connection for your fuel level, which is right up in here. You're going to pop that one loose. And then the most important one that you need to pop free is your fuel line, which is pretty tight to get to. It's right down in here, and you need to be really careful when you take this thing loose, because you do not want to break the fuel rail. So we're going to get in here and try and get our fingers on it. It's not easy to do. It has two tabs on it, and you need to push both of them in order to get to it. Lift it up a little bit higher. This is much easier to do if you've got somebody to help you that can hang on to the tank while you attempt to manipulate these two fittings. And like I said, you don't want to tug on it. When it comes loose, it'll be pretty obvious that it's loose. Like that, and it'll just slip right off. Then you can lift the tank up and sit it out of the way. You can see now the bits here. We've got, that's your fuel pump connection. This is the vacuum line that's on the left hand side of the bike. The vacuum line that's on the right hand side of the bike. This one, when you put it back together, this one is pretty short, so make sure that it is connected. And here we have your connector. This is for your fuel gauge. And then down in here you can see this little black tube. I got my finger on it right there. That is the fitting for the fuel rail. And then underneath the tank, you've got your, let's see here, there's your fuel pump. There's that connector for the fuel rail, and green connection for your fuel level, and the two fittings, which are kind of hard to see, but you've got two little fittings in here that your vacuum lines will go to. And like I said, just make sure you set your tank out of the way. Don't drop it on the floor. Don't sit it on the concrete and scratch it up. All right. This bike is already set up with a PowerTronic. It installs right here. This is where your tool bag goes. You can move the tool bag up to this spot right here. Also, this is a flasher unit that I have installed on this bike. This is just some of the PowerTronic wiring. You have to run wires pretty much everywhere. You're going to run the wiring up underneath the frame, under this frame rail or cross tube, under this bracket, all the way up to your fuel injectors, to your TPS sensor, which is over here behind this cover, and then up here to your these are your coils, and you're going to have to run 2 lines to each one of those, and you're going to have these 2 lines back here. There's actually basically these modulators that fake out the stock computer and make the stock computer think that you have not changed the ignition timing, and you can't even see them. They're hidden down inside of here. It's a super tight fit, but once you get all this stuff on here, you're good to go. We have a you can kind of see under here where my fingers are, we've got this plastic module here, which is bolted on right there. That is the ABS control, and I may end up pulling that out to give myself a little bit more room up under here so that I can get this cover off. We're going to take this valve cover off. It's got 4 8mm screws holding it on, and then it should lift right off. I'm also going to take the spark plugs out. I'm going to be sure and clean around the spark plug before you remove it so that you don't get anything inside the engine. We're going to take the spark plug out to make the engine easier to turn over. Also, you can look down inside the barrel and see if the piston is at top dead center, because you're going to have a timing mark that you're going to look at on the frame, a timing mark you're going to look at on the end of the crankshaft, and that timing mark is behind this cover right here. This is a 14mm Allen. I've seen some people online go out and they found a bolt that fits or whatever. Just go buy the correct tool. Yeah, sure, you'll never need it again except for this bike probably, although you'd be surprised because I actually needed one for some other project I had, so I already had one here. But go ahead and buy the right tools, like 10 or 15 bucks. Why take a chance on screwing this thing up? And like I said, the TPS sensor is behind this piece right here. Kind of like what Royal Enfield did with these. They put these covers on there. They hide the fuel injection. Triumph, which is one of the things you pay for when you buy Triumph, is they made their fuel injectors look like carburetors, and they did a really good job. But it also makes them cost a lot more. So this is, a tidy way to make this thing look clean without having to spend a couple extra $100 bucks. Alright, we're going to go ahead and loosen up the ABS module. I've already taken the first 2 screws out. It's just a 4mm Allen. Take the last one out. And these start out pretty snug. Make sure you got the tool in there all the way so you don't strip that little button head off. Now, you're not going to get a ton of movement out of this, but you can pull it up a little bit and kind of slip it to the side. It'll sit on top of the studs that it mounts to, the studs for the isolators. And that'll give you a little more clearance under here so that you can get your hands in there and so you can get this cover off. Alright, now we're going to unscrew the valve cover bolts. There's just 4 of them. You can get to them with a wrench or you can get to them with a ratchet. They're snug, but they're not crazy tight. Just take those off. I already got the 2 on the other side. I've already taken them off. Okay. Now, this has a of course this one didn't come off. It has a small seal, which of course on this side I decided to stay in the valve cover. This is a rubber coated metal seal that's going to have, you can look at the screw right here, it's got a little step on it right there. That seal fits on that. It's actually tightening to this other step right here. And you can, through that hole, you can look right down inside the valve cover. So it's not bottoming out. The seal's not bottoming out or anything. It's just a slight interference fit. You can see I've also already got the plug wires loose. I just popped them right off. They just pull straight off. Here you go. This one you can see that rubber seal right there. I need the camera to focus on it. Make sure you don't lose those. Put them back on there. They just will sit right down on that lip right there. Now, let's see what the popping the valve covers off is like. Hopefully, cooperate. Look at that. Okay, so we've got a gasket on here. We're going to be super careful with that gasket. A lot of times they recommend, replace the gasket, put a brand new one on here. I'm not going to do that. The main reason is I don't have another one. But also this is a rubber gasket, and they typically, if you don't screw them up, are reusable. So now there's not much room in here to get this thing out. So let's see. Alright, we're going to do one more thing. We're going to take the horn off on this side. That will give us a little more room. As soon as we figure out what size wrench we need to use. It is a 12. 12 socket. Ratchet. Okay. Take that off real quick. Alright. So pull that loose. I don't think we'll need to take both of them off. Just take the one off to one side, and we're going to pull connectors off. And it's one thing, it can be a little frustrating on this bike, but I do really like this. On all these are really good. Enfield did a really good job. Every connector locks on. So especially motorcycles tend to vibrate a fair amount. You don't have to worry about the plugs vibrating loose, any little plug wires, because they all snap lock in place, which also lets you know that you got it on there all the way, because you'll hear it snap in the position when you get it all the way on. Alright, so, and it is super tight. Let's lift up this ABS module a little more. Okay. Not cooperating here. Alright, so I was going to hopefully just loosen the one horn up. I'm going to take the other one off as well. So let's go ahead and do that too. And you can see, yeah, see right here, we've got the bolt for the horn. I'm just going to loosen that bad boy up real quick. this is what happens when you've never done something before, and particularly when there's not a whole lot of instruction on it, is you're going to run into circumstances where you just have to kind of wind your way through it yourself and figure things out. Hopefully other people they'll do it and they'll figure things out, and everybody as like a community will come up with ways to take care of this stuff. So now I think we have enough room. Just barely. Barely. Got a little breather line at the front here. Let's move that out of the way too. I think then we should be able to get this thing off of here. Now, another thing is when you're pulling something like this off, pay attention to what exactly you did to pull it off, because you're going to have to put it back on. Alright, there we go. That's the cover. Like everything else on here, it has a sticker on it. This I've never seen a bike, a motorcycle, or a car, anything that had approval stickers like the Royal Enfields do. It was amazing. They made absolutely sure everything was good to go on these bikes before they went out on the market. Like I said, it's a super tight fit. Take this gasket off. Try. It's got a little bit of a seal right there. Let's see here. Do I want to leave that in place, or do I want to take it out? I'm going to leave that in place. And what I'm going to try and do, this might make it a little bit of a hassle. We have this little tab. Let's see, it shows up here. I'm pointing at right there. That, which allows you access probably to get the camshaft off, or actually for machining. It's probably for machining, because this whole piece right here, if you want to take the cam out, this would just come off. You take these 4 bolts out and lift this thing off, and then the cam would drop into position. So this thing might be sealed in, and I'm going to leave it in there. So that's going to complicate things a little bit when I go to put it back on there, because I'm going to have to like get the valve cover in position and then blind, just by feel, put this gasket back into the valve cover, which has a groove in it all the way around. So we have our intake valves, our exhaust valves. This is one of the simplest ways to adjust possible, because you've got just a stop nut and a adjuster you adjust with a flathead screwdriver. So that makes it super easy to do. We'll take the plugs out, we'll roll the motor up to top dead center and adjust them. You do need to make sure the motor is actually on top dead center. There's going to be a mark on the crank that shows you where top dead center is. Thing is, 4-stroke motor, every time the crank rolls around, that's only a half a revolution for the camshaft. So it's possible to be at top dead center by the mark, but actually have this motor be in the middle of the draw and scavenge cycle instead of being on the compression cycle, which is what you want it on. You want it on the compression cycle so that the valves, both valves, are fully closed. That's where you'll get a proper check for your clearance in here. And we'll do that in just a minute. All right, real quick, just take this cover off, and then the battery dies. So let's try this again. Here we go. So we're going to take this cover out. All right, and it's got a nice O-ring on there. I don't know if we can really see that great in there with the camera. We'll give it a shot. So there'll be a little more light in there. Might be able to see the top dead center mark. Tell you right now, I can see that 17mm bolt, which is what they want you to turn it with. They want you to turn it counterclockwise. And I am not seeing a top dead center mark. So what I'm going to do is do this the old-fashioned way. I'm going to look at, pull this plug out, look in the barrel, see what the piston is doing, see what the valves are doing. That way I'll be able to tell when the motor reaches top dead center for sure on this side. So we'll do that real quick. Okay, so I'm going to take spark plugs out both so I can see what I'm doing and so that I can look down in the bore and see what is going on. And there's the plug right there, and still a little blurry. Here we go. And they look really good, nice and clean. You got a nice white porcelain. It's not blistered or anything. Not showing. Of course, they should look fantastic because this bike's only got 300 miles on it, but they look really, really good. So put those out of the way. Grab a flashlight so we can look down inside of the cylinder. We can see what's going on here. Let's turn this down a little bit. Okay. And we're going to turn the motor counterclockwise. Okay. So we see the motor coming up to top dead center. And I'm going to take a peek in this hole again and see if there's anything in here indicating top dead center, as was claimed. Okay, I'm not seeing anything there, which is my understanding, and I'm not seeing it's possible that there is an indicator here on the cam, which would also could give you the kind of reading that you're looking for, the thing you're looking to see there to tell. And I'm not seeing anything. Let's see if we spot anything on the right hand side here. In some cases, some of the things I worked on, they actually have, they will have a mark on the cam, or at the end of the cam shows you your top dead center mark, and I'm not seeing anything on this bike to indicate that. Sometimes they'll have like a mark. It'll be where you've got your match line here. There'll be a mark on the end of the camshaft to indicate, and oh, lo and behold, there it is right there. And that sure seems right, because by eye I have it at top dead center, and you can't see it because this little rubber piece is in the way, but there is a marker on this end of this cam. As a matter of fact, we'll go ahead and turn the motor all the way through a cycle. So you can see it probably now. We have got a line right there and on the end of the cam, and probably my bet is that makes sense. One of them, this is a 270-degree motor, so let's see here, and it's coming up on, what are we getting here? We're coming up on, okay, so this is, we were just on, the intake valves have just closed, the exhaust valves are opening now at this point. So the exhaust valves are open, and the piston is, combustion has taken place. The piston should be coming up at this point. So I've got my Oh, okay, now we're coming back up on compression now. So you've got both sides are closed. And that line is lined up again with the seam for this piece where it bolts to the head, and we've got both valves set. The intake and exhaust valves are both fully closed, so there should be a little bit of play under here, which you can see this little, maybe, I don't know, but this thing actually has a little free plant. They have these little bobbin caps on them. This little cap right here it is loose, so I know we have free play on both sides. So the piston, in this case, it's at top dead center. You've got your spark plug has just ignited. It's ignited your fuel. You have your flame front. Your gases are expanding. It's pushing the piston down like that. It's going all the way down. I feel like I have something wrong here. Oh, there we go. Okay. So we should be getting, our intakes are open. We should be having, I feel like I'm turning the motor the wrong direction, because that comes up the top. That goes down. I feel kind of like I'm turning the motor backwards, but I'm pretty sure I'm not. So I have to think about this now, because it feels like it is operating backwards from how it should be operating. We are back at top dead center. And our piston is definitely at the top, and our line is marked up with our mating line. So, all right, I figured out the problem. I'm an idiot. That's what the problem is. I said you need to turn the motor counterclockwise, and then I'm turning it clockwise. That is why I was like, I knew something was wrong, because I'm like, the valves are opening up in the wrong order. So anyway, so what we're going to do is, I've lost my flashlight, because we want to look at this thing. This motor is a 270 degree motor, so you have the pistons do not open 180 degrees at a time with each other. They open much like a Harley does. It's like one, they come to top dead center 270 degrees apart, which leaves, also terrible at math, what is it, 90 degrees before they come. One comes top dead center again. So it's 270 degrees and 90 degrees. That's why this bike has that kind of like pop, 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 pop sound. Traditional Enfield or other British twin would just be pop, 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 like that. So it does sound a little different than the traditional bikes, and you know, depends on your personal thing. I like the way it sounds. It sounds pretty cool. But anyway, you can see, hopefully, we have a line. It's just pointing straight up right now, and that is for one cylinder, and not when in the position it's in now. It's going to be again lined up with this this mating line here, and then you'll see we have the other one that's going to come, and I had to switch. I was using a ratchet for this, but turning it the correct direction,
the spring pressure from the valve springs is enough that it is trying to push the motor, like it's trying to push it past top dead center a little bit. And then you can see how you've got this next line here. Those lines are not 180 degrees apart from each other. You've got this next, and it's coming up right now to the top. So now we can know what's going on better. So at this point, the piston is descending. The intake valves are opening. They're letting the intake mixture go into the motor. The valves are getting towards bottom dead center, or the valves, the piston is getting towards bottom dead center, and so the intake valves are closing, and you saw that little jump right there, and the motor's coming up to top dead center. So it's closed, and now the piston is coming up. All the valves are closed on this side. The mixture is being compressed. The motor comes right up here. We have ignition, usually right slightly before top dead center. It causes the fuel mixture, it's not exploding, it is a proper burn. It's actually a flame front. It's burning, it's causing the gas to rapidly expand as it heats, and that's what's pushing the piston back down. And so the piston is going, at this point, is right at top dead center. And this would be where you would adjust the valves. They should, these little caps are loose and free. We're gonna go down, the piston is traveling down, the gas is expanding, pushing it down. That's what gives you your power. And now we should be at bottom, have bottomed out, or approaching bottom dead center. The exhaust valves, you can see, are starting to open, and the piston is now going to be traveling back up, and it's going to be pushing that mixture, the burnt remains of that mixture out. And then the process is going to start all over again with, you can see the intake valves are opening back up. And the piston is traveling down. Let's draw the mixture in, the valves close, it comes back up. And where's our line at? And there's our line, so we're back at top dead center again. Okay, all right. Now, if this was a two-stroke, all this would be happening at once, because they don't have valves in them, at least not traditional two-strokes. They might have a thing called like a rotary valve or a disc valve or something like that, which works to close the exhaust port and control that better. But this has already been confusing enough, we're not going to go into that. So the next thing we're going to do is actually adjust these valves. Adjust the valves, you need a 10mm wrench, you need a flathead screwdriver, and you need some I was going to call these shims, that's not what they are. These are sized spacers to let you get a perfect measurement. These slide right in. They have tons of different sizes on them. These are some older ones I have. These are some that have they have a bent tab on them, which are handy on some motorcycles and some cars, because this adjustment point is actually down inside the head, and so you can't slide a shim straight in. Fortunately, you can slide these right in. Now, I keep calling them shims, that's not correct. That's not what they are. But the correct word is escaping me at the moment, so I will correct that at some point. So we've got the sizes we're going to use are, I'm going to go with standard inch, because that's what I'm used to. So you've got 4 thousandths and 7 thousandths, which is close to what the metric that they recommend. I got a 3, let's see here. This thing appears to be missing 3. This is 0.3 0.1 millimeters. The recommended was like 0.8, so this is maybe a tad on the wide side. This is 0.78, and what they recommended in millimeters was 0.8. But if you go to the next size up, you're at, and of course they're right off camera, you go to the next size up is 8 thousandths, which is 0.2, which is too wide. Although you do typically want to err on the side of loose. If your valves are loose, they're going to be a little noisy. It's a little hard on the seats, the valve seats with the valve seats in the head, but you're not going to burn a valve. And that's the thing. If you set them too tight, there's a chance you'll burn the valve, because the valve is actually not going to close fully. And not only does the valve seating in the head create a seal so you get good compression, it also acts as heat transfer. So because that valve gets hot, because it's exposed to all these hot gases, especially the exhaust valve, is exposed to all these hot gases, and when it seats back down, that heat transfers right into the head, because it doesn't have anywhere to transfer the heat off that valve, doesn't have anywhere to go inside the head. So when it mates up with that valve seat, it immediately transfers it to this aluminum head with all these fins on it, and that helps keep that valve from getting too hot. So if you set it up too tight, what's going to happen is it's going to keep building heat, and it can fail that way. And the other way it can also fail is you've got this hot gas, you don't have a good seat, and so it's pushing this hot gas past this tiny little spot. Like if there's a weak spot in the valve and valve seat area, there's a spot where it's a little thinner, not as good a seat. It's going to push the gas past that thing, and it'll blow a groove right in the valve like nothing. So anyway, we're going to check the intake side clearance is 4 thousandths, and we're just going to put this right in here, and that's a little tight. That one's a little tight. So we'll check this other one, and that one is also a little on the tight side. Those are both a little on the tight side. So let's see here. For some reason, there it is. There's a 3 on here. Let's see if this 3 fits. And you can see, looking down here, the 3 is 0.76. So a little under what they're asking. And it also is a little on the tight side. So is that one. Well, let's take a look at this the exhaust valve real quick here. Where's it at? So we're at 7 for that one. Let's see what we get on this. Also a little snug. Also a little snug. Okay, good to know. Alright, so they're both a little snug. So we're going to go back and let's just go and we'll adjust the intake first. And double check, we make sure we got everything is lined up. And set that right there. Got this little, don't really need it for this because it's not fitting anything. This is a wrench that I made in 1985. Is that right? Yeah, 1985, because I had a Honda XL 250R that you had to get these were down inside the head, and this is the only way you could get to them. So when you break this loose, you want to hold on to your adjuster with your screwdriver so that the adjustment doesn't change, and break it loose, and then we're going to loosen it up just a little bit, snug it up just a little bit, and then we'll see if our fits in there. And a little bit further, but it's still on the tight side. So break that loose, turn that a little bit. Stick this in here. Look at that, slides right in. Okay, so slides right in. So now we're going to go up one. This is the easy way to see, did you maybe get it a little tighter than you should have? So we'll go up to 5 thousandths, which is the next size shim we have. Make sure there's not two stuck together. And we're going to see if the 5, right there, put my finger over it, the 5 will fit in there. And the 5 does fit, so it's a little too loose. So we're going to go break our nut loose, turn it back a little bit, tighten the nut up. And you definitely want to, after you check, do your first check, tighten it up all the way and check it again, because okay, that goes in there. Try the 5 again. You want to tighten the nut up fully because it may change your numbers. Okay, now the 5 thousandths is a no fit. So we're going to hold our adjuster with the screwdriver. We're going to tighten up that nut. And go back and check with the 5 again. It is a no fit. And go try the 4 thousandths, and the 4 thousandths fits right in there. Okay, so then I'm going to go to the other one, put that on here like this, and reach down through the frame to get to this one, and pop that loose like that. Okay, and I'm going to loosen it up just a little bit, tighten the nut back up, and see if we can get a fit in here. And you can see we got all these are in the way. You can't just take this off. Some of them, this particular one, you can take it apart and take your. Okay, look at that. Okay, slides right in there. That's pretty good. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this up. It also helps if you turn it the right direction. Okay. You probably hear in the background one of my neighbors. That's okay. I'm going to go. This bike's got an aftermarket exhaust on it. It's pretty loud. I'll go drive by his house in a little while. Okay, now I have adjusted it. And okay, that's in and out like that. Let's just check our 5 real quick with our 5 thousandths. Make sure our 5 thousandths is a no fit. Okay, now another thing I'll recommend is after you've adjusted this one, go back and check this one. On some bikes that have a twin valve like this, or a 4-valve head like this does, you have a little bit of play in there. And actually, ideally, and I haven't seen anybody recommend this, the ideal thing really would be to have 2 sets of I don't know why I'm drawing a blank on the name of this thing. 2 sets of shims to measure with, and that way you know for sure that you're not getting a false reading. So we'll just go back with our 4. We'll drop our wrench on our new motorcycle and scratch it a little bit. It's always good. Put this in here. Okay, it goes right in. Put this in there. Goes right in. All right, and then I'm just going to quickly double check make sure all my stuff is tight, because you don't want to be running down the road, all of a sudden hear that tick, 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 you know that you forgot to tighten something up. And then like that. Yeah, a little bit tighter. And just because I'm paranoid, one last time, put this. All right, and this one, of course you can't see what I'm doing because my hand's in the way. Put that in there like that. Okay, we're good. And then you're just going to repeat it with the exhaust valve with the 7 thousandths. Do the same thing, and then rotate the motor to the other line, making sure that it is at top dead center, and then do the other side. And then putting it back together is just the reverse. You're going to slip the stuff back into place. Like I said, this valve cover, it's super tight. If you have somebody to help you, which I really recommend, you've got this mount for your ABS. If you can have somebody hold that thing up out of the way, it makes it way easier. You've got this down here. You can see, let's see if you can see it here. Right here, there is a what is that? Crankcase ventilator, and that you can get that tube out of the way. It lets you push this stuff up out of the way. You want to bring that valve cover forward a little bit, and you can get a little more room up in here because it is a super tight fit. But it is possible. Like I said, somebody had said they'd done it on without taking the tank off, and that guy got more patience than I do. So that's it, and that's how to adjust the valves on this. And I may film putting the valve cover back on. That may be the late night adult only version because there's probably going to be some profanity involved with that. On the truth, got it all bolted back together. Hopefully everything's hooked back up. It is possible to put that rubber gasket back into the valve cover. It does take a little bit of patience. You need to get a lot of messages on your phone while you're talking, and you gotta use like a little screwdriver, but you can tuck it right back up into position. It should be fine. Generally those gaskets, that type of gasket is reusable. So, and we'll find out soon enough because it'll pour oil everywhere. Also, because I can't tell the difference between clockwise and counterclockwise, I rotated the motor backwards. I've heard some stuff online saying that you should not do that. I don't think from the standpoint of doing it with the static engine there'd be anything where it would make any real difference, although we'll find out in a second when the shoots a piston out of the side of the engine. The other thing is these are 10mm spark plugs. They are super tiny. They take very little torque. I got 5 torque wrenches, and my smallest 3/8 torque wrench does not go down low enough to torque these. They recommend 10 or 12 Newton meters, which is probably about 8 foot-pounds. So when you put them in, don't crank them down. You'll either screw up the head or the spark plug. If you've got a 1/4 inch with a 3/8 adapter, you can use your spark plug socket to put them back on there. They're 5/8 is the size of the socket you're going to use. So it is possible if you got like a deep well 5/8 and 1/4 inch, you can put that on a core. I've got a 1/4 inch torque wrench that's got the right, actually it's in inch-pounds, so you have to calculate up. So 120 inch-pounds is 10 foot-pounds, so you use about 100 inch-pounds. Anyway, then you get another message on your phone. But we're going to crank it up, and we'll see if anything terrible happens. All right, it's in neutral. Here we go. Fire right up. Oil line out. Take a quick look, see if you see any oil leaking out anywhere. PowerTronic these are Rebel recycled headers, stainless headers. Overall, I'm pretty happy with the way this bike runs. It's been a long time since I had one. Turn that off on the deal. It's been a long time since I had a new motorcycle, and it's just been a really great bike. I mean, I only got 300 miles on it. I have probably already voided the warranty, but that's okay because I'm having a really good time with it. I enjoy it. It's fantastic to ride. It is a little on the heavy side, although it vanishes the second you sit down on the bike. You can't even tell. It's just really amazing. My lightest motorcycle is about 270 pounds, and
this thing actually feels lighter than that bike when you're sitting on it. It doesn't when you're pushing it around the shop, but once you sit down on it, they just did a fantastic job. It handles great, and it's actually pretty easy to work on. There's not a ton of mods out there yet. There don't really need to be. This bike from the factory, they claim 47 horsepower. This one probably might have between 6 and 10 more than that now with the stuff that's been done to it. I'll probably put a cam in it eventually, but just really hard to beat. It's a great bike for the money and super fun to ride. I highly recommend them, and you really can't go wrong. You really can't go wrong with them.